Left's hop on armed insurgency is a likely option. And UN given unhindered access to aid in Ethiopia. A very warm welcome to Addis News Hour. I'm Solomon Danya. Thanks for joining me. Ethio-Sudanese Joint Military Committee has discussed ways of maintaining border areas peace and security. Chief of the 3rd Battalion, Major Solomon Afera, while addressing the meeting, underlined that a long-standing partnership between Ethiopia and Sudan is playing a crucial role in maintaining peace in the region. Solomon said that the two countries will continue working together to preserve peace and security in border areas. Chief of 9th Battalion of the Sudanese Army, Colonel Mohammed Adam, to his part said the two countries have long been jointly working for years to preserve peace and stability in border areas. Joint military staff of the two countries has been undertaking intelligence exchange, border area surveillance, control of illicit flow of armaments, among others, Colonel Mohammed said. Claim of victory, regaining control of some towns and other propaganda spread by the TPLF are far from truth. The TPLF's propaganda should be treated cautiously, France 24's chief foreign editor Robert Parson warned in his latest interview. Recently, the Tigray People's Liberation Front claimed that Mekelle will not be taken by the federal forces unless a heavy and protracted war involving thousands of casualties is made. This, like several other claims, was proved baseless.
A couple of things to say. We've heard many things from the leaders of the Tigrayan forces. For instance, that 14 divisions of the Eritrean army were also involved in fighting with the Ethiopian army against them. Turned out to be completely untrue. That the battle for Mekelle, the regional capital, would be a really fierce one. Turned out to be completely untrue, and so on and so forth. So I would take their claims, for instance, to have shot down a plane, although it's quite possible, and to have taken back the town of Aksum, the cultural capital of Tigray, with a pinch of salt. Certainly the impression that has been created is that the Ethiopian armed forces have achieved their ends very quickly. The conflict has lasted 3 weeks. They said this final military stage, the so-called third phase, would be over quickly. It seems that is the case. The fight for the capital of Tigray, Mekelle, was very short, over in 24 hours.
Robert Parsons told the media house that an armed insurgency on which the TPLF is pinning its hopes would be much more difficult in this 21st century, citing a host of reasons.
So the question will be, will they be able to sustain an insurgent operation? Remember, back in 1975 to 91, when there was a civil war in Ethiopia, the backbone of that civil war was from the TPLF, from the Tigrayan Popular Liberation Front. It ended with the TPLF taking the national capital of Addis Ababa. Is that going to happen this time? Almost certainly not, I would say. The TPLF wants to present this as a fight for national self-determination. The reality is it's something rather less than that. It looks more like a power play. So whether they will be able to bring ordinary Tigrayans on board is a moot point. The other factor that's important this time is that Eritrea to the north, the country of Eritrea, is hostile towards the TPLF. And the border on the west with Sudan is closed. That makes any insurgency much more difficult than back in the end of the 20th century.
While hundreds fell victims to the treasonous attack on the northern command of the Ethiopian army weeks ago, some bravely fought back, capturing some of the collaborators. One of these is Gabanesh Dabalke, whose show of bravado remains admirable in the face of the impending danger which sparked almost a month-long fighting in the state of Tigray. Having a quick grasp of her separate colonel's treason, Gabayanish managed to ambush and arrest him. Abtama Shagri tells us more.
Solomon Gebre Yohannes was one of the commanders of the Ethiopian army based in Mekelle, which was assaulted by collaborators and the TPLF's special forces on November 3, 2020. And instead of fighting to uphold his duty as a sworn army commander, Solomon opted to collaborate with the enemy. That explains why he was ambushed and arrested by his junior Gabianish. During the scuffle, which ensued when she ambushed him, Gabianish managed to snatch a gun away from him and forced him to walk barefoot all the way to Eritrea.
መቼም ጀግና ተስፋ አይቆርጥም ጀግና ጀግነቱን ይዞ ይቀጥላል እንጂ ተስፋ አይቆርጥም በወያኔ ደግሞ እኛ እጅ አንሰጥም
The brave soldiers were determined to fight till the last drop of blood. They believe in pushing forward no matter what. For myself, I was always determined to fight instead of surrendering to the TPLF's special forces. My superior was all weight when I caught him hiding in the restroom. Although he tried to resist, I captured him. I took away his gun and army badge, then forcing him to walk barefoot to Zorana. That night remains etched to my memory as unforgettable. The act by some of our staff members is treasonous and unforgivable.
Gabianish will no doubt join the stream of women fighters in Ethiopian history renowned for their bravery.
We don't confuse a country and a government. We want you to understand that. Not today, even 100 years ago, we gave our neck to be free from colonialism. Victory is Ethiopia. No individual will sell his or her country for their benefit. We love peace, we work for peace, and you have to understand that. And if you understand what's ours, you should collaborate with us. No matter poverty we're in, will not give in our pride to others. Don't blame us. It's not our fault. This is in our blood, transmitted from our fathers. Well, money will not pressure us. You can only work together with us. You cannot win Ethiopia when you have Ethiopians living here.
Ethiopia is allowing unimpeded humanitarian access to the UN to try and help civilians caught in the middle of weeks of conflict between the government and the embattled TPLF leaders. Ethiopian ambassador to France, Henok Tefera, made the remark during his stay with France 24. Abtama Shagre takes it from here.
The federal government has recently announced the conclusion of its weeks-long law enforcement operation in the restive Tigray state. In the wake of the seizure of Mekelle, the landmark event in the military operation, Ethiopia opened its doors for the United Nations to give it unimpeded humanitarian access in the state of Tigray. Talking to France 24, Ethiopian ambassador to France, Henok Tefera, said the government prioritized the humanitarian assistance in parallel with the law enforcement operation. According to the ambassador, international media outlets remained silent on the federal government's effort to facilitate humanitarian efforts.
Humanitarian access is a priority because these are first and foremost our citizens. As you know, it was on November 4th that the TPLF junta provoked this crisis by assassinating in cold blood our military officers and servicemen. They have publicly said so. They have explained the rationale. They have explained why they did it. And I don't understand why the international media doesn't report it, as it is not a claim. It has been confirmed. They explained to us in the local TV why they attacked on November 4th and committed cold-blooded murder.
The ambassador added that the TPLF junta provoked the federal government by attacking the Northern Command. After the federal government liberated the state of Tigray from the TPLF mafia clique, it signed an agreement with the United Nations to provide humanitarian assistance to the people of Tigray.
Now, it's very important to understand the genesis, because this was provoked and imposed by the TPLF junta. Having said that, humanitarian access has been granted once areas that have been liberated are secure. We want humanitarian workers to work in the best of conditions and to deliver humanitarian assistance, whether food or medicine. And as you said, we signed an agreement on November 30th with the UN so that they can have unfettered access. Now, unfettered access has been given. They can deliver food and medicine to the population.
When the TPLF junta opened fire, the government troops in the Northern Command were not in the right position to anticipate any possible attack, since they were caught unprepared and while sleeping. Ethiopia then sped up its law enforcement operation, ending it with the seizure of the regional capital Mekelle. The ambassador pointed the federal government is taking appropriate measures to avoid civilian casualties as well as cities in the state of Tigray.
Well, as you know, again, the genesis of the conflict, as you said, is very important to understand. Our troops were attacked while in their sleep. We were not in a position to anticipate anything. Therefore, in a situation where we were being killed, our troops were being killed, it was important first to gather our forces, make sure that we undertake a rule of law operation that will bring the culprits to justice, and at the same time making sure that we avoid, to the extent possible, loss of civilian life. As you may know, no city has been destroyed. All the cities in Tigray are intact because purposely the military carried out its operation in a very meticulous manner.
The biggest task at hand, he said, is rehabilitation in the state of Tigray.
The TPLF forces have been completely routed. Now their only hope is to create a war in the media. They're basically not there on the ground. We control the whole Tigray. The cities are under our control. The population now has started going back to their normal lives. So they have to create this buzz in order to give you, the international community, the impression that there's something happening. This operation has been successfully completed. We are now in the second phase where we're working for the rehabilitation of the people of Tigray. And this will be made very clear. You know, you can lie sometimes to some people, but you cannot lie to all the people all the time. So the truth will come out, and eventually this will wither away. Therefore, I really don't give much attention to the pretenses of the TPLF routed forces who are in hiding, and we know where they are. And they will be dealt with and be brought to the court of law.
Asfar Hussein Asrat, a great-nephew of Emperor Haile Selassie, blamed the TPLF for its heinous attack on a military base of the Northern Command of Ethiopian National Defense Force in Tigray. He said the federal government's law enforcement move is appropriate to maintain Ethiopia's territorial integrity and national sovereignty. Danica Hassan has more from Alasian newspaper.
The great-nephew of Haile Selassie, Asfar Hussein, said TPLF is the root cause of the military conflict in Tigray region. He underlined that the ones to blame for this conflict are the militias of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, who in early November attacked the military base of the Northern Command of the Ethiopian National Defense Force in Tigray at night, killing a large number of soldiers. Ethiopia had to react. That was what triggered this war. The conflict between the federal government and the defiant TPLF, he said, led to the displacement of thousands of civilians, many of whom fled to neighboring countries. He said unless the government could not take offensive, the conflict will turn bloody, destabilizing the Horn of Africa, as Hussein asserted. He underlined that this conflict, then, is not about the Tigray people as a whole, but specifically about the TPLF junta embattled in the capital Mekelle. Asfar stated that the war is only about the TPLF, a Marxist group whose role model before the fall of the Iron Curtain was the regime in Albania. Their central viewpoints have not changed for 27 years. The TPLF ruled Ethiopia with an iron fist and in adherence to racist criteria. 2 years ago, the group fell from power in the capital city. Its followers then retreated to their homeland of Tigray, he explained. As Wilson did not fail to blame the constitution for the current catastrophe. He went to say that Ethiopia is the only nation in the world that calls itself an ethnic federation. He said Prime Minister Abiy is doing what's necessary to protect the integrity and sovereignty of Ethiopia. Ultimately, that's also his duty. Every state has the right to use any means necessary to maintain its territorial integrity and national sovereignty. The incidents of mass murder, ethnic cleansing, and insurrections, which took place in various parts of Ethiopia over the past 2.5 years, were all orchestrated by the TPLF and its ally OLF, as Wilson added.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs disclosed how various African and European countries, as well as international institutions, have stood by the government thanks to the relentless diplomacy underway regarding Ethiopia's successful law enforcement operation and survival campaign. The remark came here today when the ministry briefed local and foreign journalists on current issues. Kasan Jani reports.
Ministry spokesperson Dina Mufti told journalists that the ministry has been actively engaging in activities aimed at making concerned bodies understand the ongoing government operation in Tigray through diplomatic tools, phone conversations and various media engagements. The ambassador stated the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Demeke Mekonnen, has been on a diplomatic tour in various African and European countries to discuss the situation in Tigray and the government law enforcement operation in the region.
There had been visits of the high-level officials to other countries. The Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Demeke Mekonnen, had toured 4 African countries, namely Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, and the DRC, where he met presidents of these countries and briefed them on the current situations, on the operations that had been going on in the northern part of Ethiopia, which had been successfully completed now.
Aside from delivering the message of the Prime Minister to the heads of states and governments in these European countries, the Deputy Prime Minister also briefed the international community on the illegal moves of the TPLF junta. As to the ambassador, the Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Ethiopia, Demeke Mekonnen has held various phone conversations with the foreign ministers of Netherlands, Norway, Russia, Austria, and Denmark that the federal government law enforcement operation in the region is over with the minimum casualties to civilians.
Apart from his tour of the 4 African countries, he had also a tour to 5 European countries, namely France, Germany, Italy, Belgium, and the UK, where he met the higher officials of these countries and briefed them the same thing, where he has outlined that this is an operation going on to make sure that rule and order is observed in Ethiopia. It had been, the leaders of these countries have been briefed that it's an internal issue. It's about making sure that rule and order is observed in the country. It's about also bringing the fugitives to the court. So the real leaders of the countries that I have mentioned have been briefed on this, and they have clearly underlined that they'll support Ethiopia's move.
The ambassador further noted that the government is working with national and international agencies to provide humanitarian assistance to affected people.
With regard to the humanitarian operation also, now the humanitarian corridor is open. Those who were displaced and who ran to Sudan will be coming back very soon, and they will be re-established. They will be rehabilitated. In fact, we are working in collaboration with the Sudanese government on this as well, and other pertinent national, regional, and international organizations, particularly the organizations that deal with the charities.
He said that the Ethiopian embassy in Sudan is working with the government of Sudan to verify the number, identity, whereabouts and similar information of the refugees.
ሳተናው ጀነራል በላይ ልበ ቆራጡ ጀነራል መሰለ የመጀመሪያ የመከላከል ስራ በጎንደር በኩል በሁመራ በኩል ያለውንና ሁመራ የመያዙን ስራ ከሌሎች ጓደኞቻቸው ጋር ሆነው ነው የመሩት። ትንታጉ ጀነራል አበባው በምዕራብ ግንባር ወደ ተኮምቢያ የወጣውን የኢትዮጵያ ወታደር አደራጅቶ አስታጥቆ እነዚህን ይዞ ሽራሮ እንዲቆጣጠር ጀነራል አበባው ሚሽን ተሰጠው። ጀነራል በላይና ጀነራል መሰለ ሁመራን ከያዙ በኋላ አድጎሹን ይዘው ተከዜን ተሻግረው ሽራሮ ላይ ከጀነራል አበባው ኃይል ጋር እንዲቀላቀሉ ተደረገ። ይህ ኃይል ተደምሮ ነው ሽሬን የያዘው፣ አክሱምን የያዘው። በራማና እዛ አካባቢ በነበረው ውጊያ ጀነራል ባጫ ነው ያደራጀው። የጀነራል ባጫ ሚሽን ወደ እንጥጮ የሚሄደውን ወደ አድዋ የሚሄደውን ቦታ መጀመሪያ ምሽጋችንን መያዝና ሽሬ ሲጠጋ ያኛው ኃይል አድዋ መቁረጥ ነው። በዛላምበሳ በኩል ግስላው ጀነራል ጌታቸው የወጣውን ኃይል አደራጅቶ በከፍተኛ ጀግንነትና ቆራጥነት ዛላምበሳና አዲግራት እንዲይዝ ነው ሚሽን የተሰጠው።
Moving on, the Dreadnought University says its journey to becoming a center of excellence is being challenged by high staff turnover. The university told ETV that weak university industry linkage has also been another bottleneck to its efforts to producing competent graduates. Sintayo Tamrat reports.
President of the university Ubada mentioned two critical factors that have threatened the university's stride towards becoming a center of excellence and producing competent graduates. One of these is unsuccessful university-industry linkage.
Our university is striving to become a center of excellence in disciplines like engineering and technology. We are doing our best to produce knowledgeable and competent graduates in these disciplines. But this aspiration became a reality when our students pass through adequate practical trainings in the campus and industries. However, they couldn't sufficiently gain additional knowledge, skills, and experience from the industries. In fact, it's not universities only that should go to industries, but industries should also come to us to work on how to maximize production and productivity.
So the main challenge is the misunderstanding of this internship or externship program. So there was a huge gap. So solving this gap was a big challenge for the Ministry of Science and Higher Education, as well as for the universities themselves. Relationship between the university industry was not supported by legal written laws.
Both the director and the president hope for better relations owing to changes in procedures as well as directions put forward by the federal government.
I think አሁን የወጡ ዳይሬክቲቮችም ይሄንን የሚያሻሽሉ ናቸው። ኢቭን የነበረው አድሬት ራሱ ብዙም ይሄን ስራ የሚያቀላጥፍ አይነት ስላልነበረ
I think the new directives put in place are meant to improve this. The system so far was also not capable of facilitating the university-industry linkage. Now the system is changed and the communication now is getting better. For instance, issues like incentives for better performance was not clearly stated previously. This is solved with the recent directives. Given this and other alternations to the university-industry linkage, I expect we will do a better job. On top of this, Redwa Industrial Park will be a big opportunity to us.
There is a change in legal written laws, as well as there is a change in the budget allocation from the university side. Previously, the industries were owned by Ethiopian citizens. There was a knowledge gap. Now probably the industries here in Dredwa are owned by some other nationals also who have experience of this university industry linkage. So the appetite is increasing, and the engagement between the university also has its own effect on increasing the acceptance of this UIL program.
Another critical threat to becoming a center of excellence is high turnover of experienced teachers.
መምህራን ፍልሰት እኛ ጋም በከፍተኛ ሁኔታ ነው ያለው።
There is high staff turnover, particularly when they return to the university after accomplishing their PhD. They resign by providing various justifications. Most of their justification is housing. We try to solve this by working with the Dredwa city government, but that's yet to be resolved.
The university is currently taking several measures to maintain well-experienced and qualified teachers on its payroll, deliver quality education, and produce competent graduates, Uba stated.
Senior staffዎችን ቅድሚያ ሰጥተን እነሱ
We are now building houses for our senior staff. Besides, we have seen about 300 teachers for PhD studies with the view to quickly raise the number of experienced staff. In addition, we are working on creating a better teaching learning environment to smoothen our move to become research and excellence center. Last but not least, we have a plan to work with renowned universities locally and abroad to share resources and narrow the gap successfully.
Dredwa University has one institute of technology and 5 colleges. Its enrollment has grown to over 20,000 students in regular evening, weekend, summer and other programs.
Ethiopia has announced that a general parliamentary and regional election, the 6th since 1995, will be held in mid-2021. Expected to be free, fair and democratic, after the nation has begun embarking on a wide range of reform beginning 2018, the experience is drawing the interest of political parties. Some opposition political parties share their expectations regarding the election. Emmanuel Joge sat down with the party representatives and compiled the following story.
Concerning the upcoming national election, the Ethiopian government is having some discourses with opposition political parties and other stakeholders to make it reliable, free and fair election. Different opposition political parties say that they are hopeful that the upcoming national election will be a truly democratic one.
The past elections in this country were all farce. There was never a true and free democratic election in this country. The next election will be the first election after the transition in this country. Due emphasis, due diligence should be done to make this the coming election a free and fair election and a democratic election, which will be at least acceptable by most of the stakeholders in the country. We're saying this for the sake of the country and for the sake of the peace and security and stability of the people of this country, because as I said, the elections after transitions, they can play a break or make role in the country. It's very significant. We're doing our best as a political party to play a positive role in the success of the coming election.
We should have an election which is fair, free, and reliable. And we should build institutions like the justice system, the security system, including the police, and so on. So, in my opinion, I hope the new era for Tigray is coming, and the people of Tigray will be together with the other brethren and sisters of Ethiopia. They will see the light of democracy, social justice, and prosperity.
On the contrary, some others have a reservation that the timeline and schedule put forward by the National Electoral Board is unrealistic.
The conflict is not over. The TPLF is at large now. Most of the leaders are now still, having some kind of resistance against the state. First, there must be some kind of working peace and order for any reasonable election. You cannot conduct an election while the country is, at war within itself. So therefore, we have our doubts whether this is a realistic one, in spite of government confidence, but we are preparing for the election. We are doing our best to fully participate in the coming election.
However, the opposition political parties say that they are doing their best at the grassroots level to try and snatch as many of the 547 parliamentary seats up for grabs come election day.
Hotel owners and managers in Adama City told ETV that the stable environment prevailing this time has helped the hotel industry revive. They also told ETV that the corona pandemic seriously affected the business, but that after the government lifted the restrictions, the industry has regained normalcy.
The current situation of hospitality industry in Adama is coming to the normal situation after the COVID. But before that, COVID made some minimized the flow of customer to Adama.
Within the coronavirus pandemic, so far, the hotel industry was very poor. It was devastated at the rest of the world, but these days it has been improved a lot. We are currently serving a lot of customers.
The number of local visitors is now attained its peak, they added. Conference tourism in the city is growing due to the rise in the number of standard hotels. Better service variety, number of bedrooms and adequate number of conference rooms have contributed to the increased influx of conference tourism in Adama, they told ETV.
A reason why a conference is flowing to Adama is one of the reasons is it is accessibility, or it is access to the center of the capital city of Ethiopia. The other is there are lots of international standard hotels providing international service with standard conference facilities and standard bedrooms and standard restaurants and bars.
አዳማ እንግዲህ ቀደም ሲል እንደተናገርኩት የአየር ጸባይዋ በጣም ጥሩ ስለሆነ
Adama's weather condition is favorable and conducive. Adama got its modernity ahead of other cities. There are many high-standard hotels in the city that can serve for various meetings. Especially, the expressway can help the city connect with Addis Ababa fast.